Hello, all praise to Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So, I'm on the website doyouknowq.com, and I'm going to go through this website. So there's a few things I want you to think about as I do this. I don't think there is an official Q website, let's say, but this is a website which, it's one of a few, which talk about the Q movement and the ideology behind it. And so I just wanted to show it to you, and I wanted to prove to you a few things. First thing is that if you don't think that this is a religious thing, if you don't think that there's anything, the Q movement has anything to do with religion, I want to prove that wrong. I want to show you that the people involved, at least a significant number of the people involved, think that it's a religious thing, and a lot of those people are Christian. So I wanted to show that to you. And I also wanted to show you that Q is not a Christian movement. So those are two things. Those are two things that I want to show you in. It's probably going to be multiple videos because there's a lot of information on here, and I wanted to go through. I won't go through all of it, but just giving you an idea. Because I think this is a good example of the type of ideology, the sentiments behind the Q movement. So when I'm going through this stuff, I'm going to try to put some stuff on the screen, but I want you to think about religious things. Like, just look at this from the perspective of looking at it as if it is a religion, and think about the ideology behind it. And I want you to notice the number of times that Jesus is mentioned. Just pay attention. Look for his name as we go through this material, because there's only one Savior. Jesus is that Savior, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And as I've mentioned before, when people say God, they could be saying a lot of things. They could be saying Vishnu. Go God, yes God, Vishnu, Vishnu, go Vishnu, or go Thor, or whatever. It could be meaning anything. The great architect of the universe, yes. So, yeah, just keep that in mind as well. God is not a specific term. It's a general term for deity. So just keep those things in mind as we go through this. So on the homepage, it's got Q, the Great Awakening, and it's got the menu up the top, and then there's a sort of video playing here, the Great Awakening, and it says Q is bringing us awareness to the corruption in the government and throughout the world. And you can sign up for our Q videos. So you can sign up and then just going down. So I guess firstly, bringing awareness to the corruption in government. That's one of their statements as to what they're doing, or what Q is doing, their understanding. So then going down, expand your thinking, Q, do your own research. Yes, you should be doing your own research. You should be reading the Bible is what I'm saying. Because, of course, I mean, if you remember one of the previous videos, I showed you how Satanism demands study. Like that's, Satanism doesn't demand worship, it demands study. So that sort of goes along with, yes, do your own research. And yes, you should be doing your own research. You should be reading the Bible. You should be spending at least half of your research time reading the Bible. And my personal testimony is that would be very, very beneficial to you. If you don't understand the Bible, then you will get deceived by this stuff. The Bible is the truth. If you don't understand the truth, then the only thing left other than the truth is lies. So then there's some other stuff going down about Q is our, in the about section, Q is our insight to what has been happening to our nation, our world for decades. It says decades, but in reality, of course, it's much longer than that. Even if you don't believe in any of the religious stuff, I mean, we're talking about the Illuminati. The Illuminati started in 1776, as I understand it. So we're talking about hundreds of years at least of this conspiracy. And the Illuminati didn't just spontaneously appear out of nowhere. So that's a bit misleading to say what's been happening to our nation and our world for decades. It's at least for centuries. I would posit for thousands of years. I would posit since the beginning, because I think that Satan is involved here. And I've explained some of that in my previous videos. And we invite you to do our own research and to come to your own conclusions of the content presented. Most people don't do their own research, realistically. Most people don't come to their own conclusions, partially because they're lazy, partially because there's too much information and it's difficult and people don't have enough time. So what you do is you go to somebody else who's summarized the information, kind of like what you're doing with me. I'm doing the same thing, and I recognize that. And I'm trying to bring you to Jesus and say, go and read the Bible. And if you're okay, and if you're there, then the two main points I'm trying to get across. Firstly, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through him. Read the Bible, the King James Bible, and give yourself to Jesus. That's my number one thing. The other thing is Q is not from Jesus. Q is not from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Q is Luciferian. Those are the two main points that I'm trying to get across to you. But yes, you need to think for yourself, as in, don't be led by the crowd, trust God, let every man be a liar. And then there's some other stuff. But anyway, down the bottom there's some apparel. You can buy some Q shirts with Q, trust the plan, and you can buy mugs as well. And there are Q coins you can buy if you want some memorabilia. So anyway, the big picture. Clicking on the big picture. This page attempts to organize Q posts by topic and create a big picture, all of the hyperlinks, QAnon is a military operation. By asking questions, Q is informing the public of the corruption in our government, who the bad actors are, and the methods of corruption. Q is not only communicating to the public, he's also communicating with other members of his team and America's enemies. All eyes are on the Q board. Q knows the black hats are watching, and so who's talking to them? So black hats. It's talking about black hats. Of course, if you say black hat, the implication is that there's a white hat. What does that mean? Well, it's talking about wizards and warlocks. It's talking about magic, and not Christian, because there's this idea in the Q movement that the good guys and the bad guys, and the good guys are fighting the bad guys. The black hats and the white hats. The good wizards and warlocks, the bad wizards and warlocks. This is a term that Q has used. If you're not aware, you can go and search on qmap.pub. So yeah, no magic is good. Just by reading about Q, you have become part of a military operation. So this is one thing that the Q movement is doing, because Q wants you to get involved. Q wants you to be involved, and we are Q, be part of the movement, and to get involved, basically to incriminate yourself, because this is Satan wanting you to get involved. He wants you to do research into this stuff. He wants you to be part of the operation. He wants you to take part in going the wrong direction, basically supporting Q, supporting Trump, and helping it's a military operation, helping the military to overcome the country. Because that's what Satan wants. He wants you to go away from Jesus, go away from trusting in Jesus, and to trust yourself. So you can take part in this military operation. It's an information war. It is an information war. So Q is trying to expose the deep state, and the deep state is working to prevent exposure. The black hats are afraid of being exposed. The more people who become awakened, the more fearful the deep state becomes, and it causes them to react. The black hats are afraid of being exposed, and yet they put all of their information out into the public using symbology. So up until recently, most people haven't been able to decode the information, but nevertheless, if you're doing it out in the open, the amount of your involvement in this active military operation is up to you. Just by reading this and researching Q, you have become part of history. So yeah, this idea that this is a historic thing, and you can become a part of it. You can be one of the patriots, and we're on the winning team. And it's up to you though, and you should get involved. We want you, and you can see from the perspective of QAnon being a cult. You can see how it gets you in. It's not forcing you. You don't have to if you don't want to join in with this historic military victory, and where the forces of good take over the evil black hats and the evil deep state. You can see how the propaganda works, right? The psychology works. It's a summary. The big picture is the world has been quietly ruled by generational families. They own 90% of the world's wealth. They use that wealth for power to create more wealth. These families have intermarried and control top echelons in our government, business, education systems, culture centers, Hollywood and music industry, and religious institutions. They are entrenched. Their reach is enormous. They control intelligence agencies, CIA, the mainstream media and social networking platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. There's a huge spider web. Everything connects. Sound like a conspiracy? Please do your own research. So yeah, they admit that the cabal is big and powerful, and yet Trump is not involved. there's still this belief that people have that, despite the fact, this is even, I wouldn't say this is official Q material, because there isn't necessarily official Q material. I mean, that's one of the things about the movement. Anything that proves to be wrong can just be written off, because disinformation is real and mistakes are made, and plausible deniability. But anyway, so yeah, these generational families, they control the top echelons of government, business, education systems, cultural centers, Hollywood music industry, and religious institution, and they are entrenched. The reach is enormous. They control the intelligence agencies, mainstream media, social networking, all of that. So Trump, surely, as somebody who is a billionaire and has had the life he has had, the public life he has had, being involved in all of the things that he has been involved in, surely he is also involved, right? Because if Trump truly was an outsider, if Trump truly wasn't involved in any of this stuff, could he have become the prominent person that he has become? Could he be a billionaire celebrity? And could he become the president of the United States? Does that make sense to you? Because a lot of these Q, this is, do you know Q, and there's Q proofs on here. What are the Q proofs proving? They're proving a link between Q and Trump. That's all they're proving. And yeah, there is a link between Q and Trump. I believe there is a link between Q and Trump. That has been proven. Yes, but if Trump's one of the bad guys, if Trump's one of the people, then one of the puppets, one of the, the same continuation in the same narrative, the same story that's being presented the entire way along. If the same people are still in control, then proving that there's a link between Q and Trump doesn't mean anything, does it? Or you might argue that because Trump is part of the system, if Q is connected with Trump, then Q is also part of the system. So these groups, 3 groups control the world, supposedly. Yeah, 3-sided pyramid: George Soros, the Rothschilds, and Saudi Arabia. So this is the understanding of the world. But I mean, George Soros controls the world, and the Rothschilds and Saudi Arabia. So I guess the idea is it's like the banking system and the money in the world. But I mean, you're ignoring like the Catholic Church, for example. I mean, I haven't done a lot on the Catholic Church. I mean, it's a rabbit hole trying to get into all this stuff. Anyway, I was just talking about what the Q people are presenting. Okay, so I just ran out of space on my phone and it just cut off. Anyway, so back to what are we going? Globalist plan to destroy America, strip away and control our wealth, systematically weaken our country, creation of the Federal Reserve, destroy our military might, global climate hoax, eliminating our manufacturing abilities, eliminate our energy resources, control our leaders, breed leaders, control the media, blackmail, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And it presents a view of reality. And I would say it's a somewhat inconsistent view of reality. It's a smaller, in one sense, it's a smaller conspiracy than it actually is that's being presented by this website, at least. And I would say by Q as well, in the sense that, it's presented as if it's a handful of bankers who happen to be Jewish. So, it's the Jews, I guess, because the Jews control Hollywood as well. Because the Jews aren't portrayed very well. It's not openly stated in any of the official material, but if you go to the Q boards, it's quite a big thing that the Jews are hated, because the Jews control the money and the Jews control Hollywood and the entertainment industry. It's a lot of anti-Jew stuff going on. So it's worth noting that. But there's a version of the conspiracy where it's not that big a thing. On one hand, it's not that big a thing. There's this global conspiracy, but as I read earlier, it's only decades long. It's a decades long global conspiracy, as opposed to the hundreds of years. When you're talking about the banking system, you have to keep in mind the Illuminati, and the Illuminati goes back to 1776, and then what happened before then. Even if you're talking about the Rothschilds, I mean that goes back longer than decades. So it's sort of an inconsistent picture. It's sort of on one hand making out that it's a relatively short-term conspiracy, because of course JFK is good and Reagan is good. They were good presidents, and according to Q. So you've got the good guys and bad guys. Supposedly there's been a fight all throughout history, and just lately, in the last relatively recent period of time, things have been getting really bad. But now we're going to take back the country. But on the other hand, it's a long-ranging conspiracy. So it's inconsistent. Anyways, that's the big picture. Who is Q? Menu at the top. Q is an anonymous group of highly placed individuals, likely military and NSA, close to President Trump, who are providing information and insight via the internet. Q is bringing public awareness to the vast amounts of corruption in the government and the world. You cannot fight an enemy you do not know exists. Q is showing us who our enemy really is. I haven't got into the religious part of this yet. There's definitely religious stuff on this website, but just worth noting that if you're a Christian, you believe that our enemy is not flesh and blood. It's a spiritual war we're fighting. And Q has quoted Ephesians 6 about the armor of God, and quoted that bit. Our enemy is not flesh and blood, but the rulers and principalities and of this world. So worth pointing that out. As we get into the more religious stuff, just remember, justice cannot be served and rest cannot be made. And we need to know our enemy. Once the public recognizes how we have been sold out and misled by leaders in both parties, sold out so they admit, both parties, they'll be outraged and demand justice. Q is trying to set the stage for justice while avoiding civil war. There's going to be no civil war. There's going to be there's going to be martial law, but no civil war. That's the plan. Which, I guess that's why you get the right. You get the right involved, because the right are the people who are the people with the guns and people who would fight. So you need them to be on your side. So the mainstream media is biased and corrupt, and yes, it is. The mainstream media is biased and corrupt, but the mainstream media is controlled by the enemy. Both sides are controlled by the same people. So those bad mainstream media people, they're controlled by the same people who are controlling the right side of politics. The same system that Trump is a part of, same system that Trump used all through his life, and he was on the covers of many, many magazines and on television, and those same people that Trump is involved with, they're all on the same side. And yes, they are corrupt. The media is corrupt. Mainstream media covers up and does not report many global crimes. Yes, that's true. They actually put out a lot of disinformation. Yes, that's true. Which they know is false, to shape the narrative. Yes, they do shape the narrative to the American public and the global public. Happens elsewhere too. Oh, yeah. Information is power. Information is money. Information is control. In this modern age, information is the game. Who has the information? Well, not us. We're being fed information, aren't we? From somebody, from Q, from an anonymous source on the internet. And we know that the world is controlled by the cabal. And the cabal have all of the information. And have had the information for hundreds of years, if not thousands, or decades, if you believe this website. So who has the power and who has the control and who's feeding us the information? It's this idea that somehow the good guys are winning and taking back the country. But realistically, think about it. You're being manipulated. Posting directly to the public, cut out the middleman, why, blah, blah, blah. I won't read the whole thing. I'll put a link to this website. Q posts, Q proofs, Q updates, topic and news, new media. So I'm not going to go through everything here. So the new media, you've got to click on that. It's got links to Praying Medic, Deception Bites, and a few other websites that are, I guess, endorsed at least by this website. So what you've noticed with the Q media, let's say, there are a number of people. Like Praying Medic was one, Deception Bites is another, and if we go down to Just Informed Talk, and there are a few, Serial Brain 2, there are a few people who were around early on in the Q movement who sort of became the Q media, and are now, when these people are all writing books and accepting donations and things now, and sort of this is their job. Their job is to report on Q. So the new media that's been created. So Trump so the Trump family, so spiritual warfare. So you go to the spiritual warfare tab, there's a bunch of stuff on here. This is the bit where you can't really deny that there's a religious element to this. And there's a few things I wanted to point out in here. One of them is in Modern Prophets. Trump is a bit Trump. God's Chaos Candidate. It's by Lance Wallnau. Lance Wallnau prophesied that Trump would become president before he won the nomination. Said The Simpsons. Dr. Wallnau compares Trump to King Cyrus from Isaiah 45, and Benjamin Netanyahu also said something like that. He states that Trump is a secular leader like Cyrus, who was anointed by God to restore his nation. Wallnau states that the church has been asleep at the switch. By removing itself from politics, government, and culture, the church has allowed the enemy to take control. The Great Commission of spreading the word of Jesus, Jesus is mentioned, must include more than the harvesting of souls. The church needs to influence nations. The battle is for truth and error, and for the American mind. So this bit here I think is interesting. Did Jesus want us to rise up and get involved in politics and get involved in government? Politics, government, and culture. Are we supposed to be doing that? Or are we supposed to be separate? Are we supposed to separate ourselves from the world? Because we're supposed to separate ourselves from the world as Christians, aren't we? Keep separate from the world, not get entangled in the world. We shouldn't be getting involved in politics, government, and culture. The Great Commission is spreading the gospel. But they want us to get involved. Trump has prophetic intuition. He's the perfect candidate for where America is going. And I'll put a link to a video about Trump and the Bible and Trump and God under this video, and you'll see it is prophetic intuition, not from a Christian perspective. America is about to go through a great shaking. Trump was built for the battle ahead to be a wrecking ball against the agenda of the enemy. He can navigate for chaos because he was built for chaos. Trump is God's chaos candidate. Does that sound Christian to you? A chaos candidate. We're supposed to follow Jesus, aren't we? Was Jesus a chaos candidate? Oh, maybe you could argue. I mean, he disrupted the scribes and Pharisees. But in the same way that Trump is, would Jesus have appeared on the cover of Playboy? You got to think about these things. Is this Christian, or is this some other gospel that's being talked about here? Anyway, I've talked about enough in this video. I reached my time limit, so I will catch you in the next one.